Now we will discuss negation or abhava. So, how do we know non-existence? How do we know that there is no jug on the table? So, the focus here is on the perceptibility of the abhava. So, the Mimamsak scholar Kumaril, he said that abhav appears as a special intuition or gyan. Abhav arises when no ordinary praman, perception or inference, can establish the existence of something. Kumaril argues that pratyaksh always requires a sense object contact. In this case, pratyaksh always requires that there is no jug on the ground, that I is in contact with the ground. But if I is in contact with the ground, but there is no jug to be contacted there, right? So the non-existence of jug cannot be due to perception since you are not percepting the jug at all. So he gives further elaborates, he gives two types of cases. In the first case, if you see the ground and you judge that there is no jug. So if we see ground, not the jug, we become aware that jug is absent. But this is explained as seeing ground, then remembering the jug, and then forming a special or non-perceptual intuition of absence. Then we can, he gives a further example, that is, suppose you sat in the morning in a place which did not have any tigers. You did not reflect on tigers either. In the evening, someone asks you, were there any tigers there at the place you were sitting? You think and you become aware that no, there were no tigers, even though you are not perceiving the place at all. In such cases, there is no present perception of locus. There is no inference from a known Vyapti. But still, there is a notion that there were no tigers. So, Kumaril argues that negation must be special kind of cognition. It is not reducible to perception or inference because there was no uh, present perception of the locus in the tiger case, right? So it must be a special kind of cognition. To this, Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika replies that absence is also perceived. The cognition that there is no jug here is a single perceptual episode, just like there is a jug on the ground. So there is no jug is also a single perceptual episode, much like, you know, that just like there is a jug on the ground. So in both cases, the same visual process is at work. First of all, eye sees the ground. Along with it, it also grasps the absence of jug on the ground. So there is no need at all to posit a different or separate kind of knowing for absence. Uh, and what about the Kumaril's principle that sense contact is required? Now, the Nyayiks and the Vaishesiks argue that the principle sense contact is required applies only to positive existence. Negation is not a positive substance, therefore, demanding sense contact with it is misguided. And what is needed is sense contact with the locus, sense contact with its ground. So, how do later apprehensions work? If you think there were no tigers there, Nyaya says that it is just past, this is just memory of a past perception of absence when you were in fact seeing that place. Therefore, for Nyaya, Abhāva is a real padartha and its cognition is produced just like Bhava or positive being. It generates the cognition, it is not just as Bhava generates, it is. The objection to this is that if no sense contact is needed for negation, why can't I perceive negation of jug in places I never see? right? So to this, Nyaya answers that for the apprehension of negation, I must at least perceive its locus somewhere. Uh, we know a quality, for instance, gun of a color, only in association with its substrate. Therefore, and in similar vein, in similar, draw similar analogy, we know absence only in association with the ground or locus where it is instantiated. And when non existence is grasped later, it is not the new perception, but it is the memory of the jugless ground. Now, Buddhists go further and deny that negation is any real entity at all. Uh, they say that, when we apprehend not X, where X is something, we always do it with specific time and place qualifications. Like this is not here now, etc. And there is no real relation between the negation and the pratyogin, which is the negated thing, or the negation and its locus, or there is no even real relation between the negation and the opposition or viruddha. Even when the jug is present, when the jug is present, there is no negation, and when negation holds, the jug is absent. So we cannot put jug and its absence into any real relational structure, because when the jug is present, no negation. When negation is there, jug is absent. So they challenge Nyaya. If negation were some entity, is it a positive existent? If it's a positive existent, then it is just like other bhavas. Is it a non-being? In that case, negation becomes eternal and ubiquitous. It cannot be tied to a particular position like no jug here. So Buddhists consider all talk of negation to be merely a certain way of thinking. They don't consider it a separate ontological category. In Mimamsa, we have 11 kinds of non-perception or anuplabdhi that Kumaril's school distinguishes, to justify the negative statements. Uh, Natural non-perception, that is, you know, uh, which we'll see when we see the Mimamsa philosophy. But from Nyaya's side, what people call non-perception is just perception of some positive state of affairs, which we interpret as the absence of something else. But as per Kumaril, the Abhāva is known by a special praman, anuplabdhi, and perception always needs a sense of object contact with something positive. So, and because for no jug on the ground, there is no jug in contact, so it cannot be perception. And Nyaya, replied that perception of positive existence and perception of negation are in fact on the same footing. Both are simply facts of experience. And we, in fact, have no right to say that only the former is valid, that is, only the perception of positive existence is valid, and negation must be special or non perceptual. We cannot say this. And the locus is positively perceived, the absence is apprehended in that locus, right? So it's really not a special case if we are perceiving the abhav. There is only one perceptual act whose object is ground qualified by absence of jug. You see ground, you don't see jug. It's just merely a one act. So there's nothing special in negation. Hmm. So if is the absence identical with the ground or is it different from it? If it is identical, we should expect ground to be perceived as absent even when the jug is present, right? Because then ground would imply absence. This is absurd. But if it is different, that is the absence different from the ground, from the locus, then we have admitted Abhāva as a distinct category, which is precisely what the Nyāya-Vaiśeṣika position is. So negation is apprehended by perception just as the positive entities are, but negation is ontologically different from its locus. So what is the relationship between negation and its locus or pratiyogin? Cognition that the juglessness of the ground is a case of Visheshan Vishesha Sambandh, where the ground is the qualified or Visheshya, the absence is the qualifier or Visheshan. And the relation between the negation and the pratiyogin is opposition, that where one is, the other is not. So negation is not some free flowing nothing. Negation is in fact located in a substrate, and negation is defined by its opposition to the corresponding positive entity. And the four kinds of standard kinds of abhav in Vaisheshik are pragabhav, which is prior non-existence. It is non-existence before the production. For example, the absence of the jug before the potter makes it. Then we have dhava sabhava, which is dhvam sabhava, which is the posterior non-existence. This is non-existence after the destruction. That is the absence of jug after it was, destroyed by some object, let's say. Then we have anyona bhava, which is the mutual non-existence. One thing is not another, right? So horseness is not cowness. The horse is not the cow. Then we have anantya bhava, which is the absolute or eternal non-existence. So that is a negation which always holds. For instance, non-existence of a jug in a cow. Even if a jug is produced somewhere else, jug in cow, it is always non-existence. Therefore, to conclude, negation is a full-fledged ontological category with its own kinds, and it is perceived through the appropriate relation to a locus and to a pratiyogin.